Ready?
Uh-huh.
Right, you called in?
Wait, is this mouse right? Oh.
Yeah, that's right, don't worry.
We've got a mouse
No,
now.
I've set her up, mate. Don't know about that.
So that's a bit more cash, isn't it?
Just start recording so you can start whenever.
Right, is that on as well, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right, we ready?
I'll do a bit of editing this time.
Look smart.
Yeah.
Right, we're ready when you are, Ava.
Oh yeah, forgot.
Ooh, spade looks good.
It does. I reckon you just need Russia and India, like, little title up there.
Yeah. Get it, I'll get Mandy to print that, yeah.
Try and do it with the words in the colours of the flag. It's easy to do, I'll be able to do that for you. I'll send it to Mandy, don't worry.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Harris Academy. My name is Mr. Doherty and I'm joined here by my co-presenter,
Mr. Rickenberg.
and we are here for our weekly ramble of jogging around the world. Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Yeah, another long week. Open even yesterday. We had some big hitters in earlier in the week as well, but all's actually gone really smoothly. So
When you say big hitters, what do you mean by big
we're
hitters?
gonna, I think we shout them out.
Go on, we might
Right,
as well.
our lovely consultant Radhika was
Yeah.
in this week, as well as the head of the consultancy team, Mr. Adam O'Connor.
Just give us a little bit of a rundown of how we're doing.
Yeah, just a little rundown. And what word did they use? Smashing it or something like that? Best department they've ever seen.
Maybe, I think
Yeah,
so.
I bet some things might have got lost in
Propping up the entire
translation.
federation.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
How are you,
Okay.
sir?
I'm good. Yeah, long week. I'm quite excited actually. I'm going away tonight.
Yes, you are. Where you going?
I'm going to Glasgow,
Glasgow,
Scotland. So I'm excited about that. So I've got a little weekend away, which I'm pleased about. But yeah, so we are here for our 14th episode. Is that right?
Yeah, 14th. Yeah.
Episode 14 of Jogging Around the World, our weekly ramble. So good morning to our producer, Ava. Good morning, Ava. How are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. We're yeah, it's been a long week. It has been long.
But this is always a nice highlight of the week, isn't it?
It is. It's a nice way to end the week. Yeah, and obviously we've always got loads of time to plan it. So let's get cracking with what we are drinking. So, sir, what are you drinking?
I've gone for the lorry version of coffee, I think today, sir. I've gone for a caramel. I think it's called Emmy Cafe Latte.
Yeah.
Made with hand roasted Arabica beans.
Yeah.
With smooth caramel. So
Nice.
lovely,
That looks
lovely start.
And I have a pint of.
Yeah.
I've gone for the Starbucks caramel macchiato from last week. I obviously
Caramel top.
it's a caramel top. Yes, please. This is the good stuff. It's creamy. It's powerful. It's sugary. And what about you, Ava? What have you got to drink this morning?
I've got Tropicana, smooth orange with no bits, of course.
Yeah, that's how I'd have my chocolate.
Courtesy of Mr. Doherty this morning.
It was my round this morning.
Yeah.
It was my round this week, so you enjoy that, Ava. So,
Thank you,
okay,
sir.
superb. So, what is first on our agenda today?
Shout outs.
Oh, right, okay, as usual, the shout out. So, who is first?
The sixth form team.
Right, why are we shouting out the sixth form team?
Sixth
sir?
form team, whole sixth form team.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, Miss Cowler, Miss Jarvis, Mr. Graham, Miss Cuts, smashed it. Right, lovely open evening yesterday. Really busy. Good buzz around the building yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
Again, heard rumours that geography was the busiest one that they'd ever seen.
Yeah.
But again, open to interpretation, I think.
Yeah.
I also want to shout out Miss Duffy.
Yeah.
Did a sterling job yesterday.
She really does.
Miss Rouse also helping out like you wouldn't believe. And our two amazing sixth formers that were there as well. So shout out to Faye in year 13 and Ashley in year 12, who really represented our department, represented themselves really well yesterday.
And they represented the school really well as well. They did a sterling job, and to anyone else who helped, that was a really good open evening. It's good. Always is a good evening, that. Okay, superb. Who's next on the list?
Darcy Clark.
You know what? I saw Darcy yesterday and Ava was in the room, so I reckon Ava is buzzing about this one as well.
Yeah, the reason we are shouting out Darcy Clark is because she, I think there's some context to this, because she busted her foot on the way into school. I don't know what she did, but I found her hobbling up the stairs on the way straight to, she fell over. Didn't she? We won't say that on the podcast. And she'd had a bad ankle. She had to be taken straight to A&E to check it out. She emails me from A&E and says, "Sir, I'm going to miss today's lesson. Can you send me the PowerPoint?" But what we were doing was extended writing. So I sent her the question, sent her the success
So this
criteria.
was purely off her own back.
Off her own back. This is why the answer was even...
No,
anyway, we'll
no
get to
input
that.
from the boss either.
No, what, from me?
Yeah.
No, she just did it all by herself because we were doing the extended writing. So I sent her the question, sent her the success criteria. And what comes back to me the next day is what I can only describe as one of the best 8 markers that I've seen from someone in year 10.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Since I started teaching, almost in GCSE, there's a couple of little things that we can improve on, but I want to shout her out because the quality of the answer was so good. The development of her points, the structure, the language and terminology that was used, considering she wasn't there with me to plan it, I thought it was an absolutely outstanding answer. And it's not just that; it's the the responsibility to ask for the work, turn some grit and determination to actually do it while you are in hospital. She could have easily had the day off and no one would have held that against her. And then to produce such an outstanding piece of work, I was really proud of her, and I think she's done really well, so she deserves a big pat back for that.
Yeah, well done.
And obviously it's your teaching, 7, 8 and 9, isn't it?
Could argue, but again, open to interpretation.
We won't take it. We won't take the sunlight away from you. Okay, no problem. And any more shout outs, Ava?
Our YouTube account.
Oh, so we really like this. Have you even noticed that we slightly sat at a different angle?
This is actual from constructive feedback.
Yeah, we've been told it looked a bit too much like an interview, so we've tried to open our body shape up a little bit to make it a little bit more.
Less formal. One leg crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
Casual,
so we now have a YouTube account.
Yes. Jogging around the world.
Go on, talk about those numbers.
So yeah, jogging around the world. It takes ages to upload videos to YouTube, so just another thing to add to my list. So that's useful for me. But I uploaded it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Started slowly telling people about it on Monday or Tuesday or something like that. And within 24 hours, over 100 views.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and because we keep promoting it, the views are going to go up. And I think this is because YouTube's so much more accessible. We love Spotify. Of course, Spotify will be our home for the foreseeable future, but having it on YouTube as well just opens it up to a lot more people.
I think it just makes it a lot more accessible, doesn't it, for our young people and any other worldwide listeners.
Yeah, we've had some good requests in the comments on YouTube, sir.
We have, and if you are going to comment, guys, please make sure they are appropriate for an educational podcast.
I had to turn the comments off pretty swiftly when it was uploaded, and some people found it, but we can take the sticks there, it's no problem for us, is it?
That's absolutely fine. Wicked. So give us a like and a subscribe. Is that what we have to say now? Like and subscribe. Okay, brilliant. So, what are we talking about today?
Rivers.
Yes.
Rivers. Right. Why have we decided to do rivers today?
I think we might find talking about the ethnic diversities and the social things a lot more easier to flow.
Yeah.
Right? Our flow with that is much better. But what the students benefit from the most, I think, is the physical stuff.
Yeah. And
talking about the processes and hearing the experts talking through the process of how landforms are created, and also just getting a good understanding of sort of like the big pictures of a lot of these physical processes as well. So rivers today, you haven't struggled with the rivers question. Rivers isn't always the most popular topic, but considering the River Thames has given us so much joy around these parts of the country, I think we need to understand why rivers are so important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also as well, we know that we love talking about the human stuff, but where our major cities are located, they're always near a major body of water, aren't they? Often rivers in the UK. But we are not doing the River Eden case study today, are we?
That's for
another
extravaganza, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be a big podcast. What we're doing today is we're going to talk about upper and lower course landfall.
Yes.
So first of all, we need to talk about the top to the bottom of a river.
Yes. So a river is just a body of water that's on land that flows.
Right.
So rivers are, as you say, quite dominant features of a lot of countries.
Yeah.
I think we've said actually in one of the podcasts before, I think Iran's one of the only countries in the world that doesn't have a river.
Right.
But most countries have rivers, and most countries that have rivers tend to be quite successful economically. So rivers are split up into 3 distinct sections. The upper course, the middle course, and the lower course.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if we talk about the characteristics of these.
So and what's the start of a river called?
The start of a river is called the source.
And the end is called?
The mouth.
Right. So so you've got the source, the mouth. The source is in the upper course.
Yeah.
The mouth is in the lower course, and we've got the middle course. Now, am I right in saying that the source of a river generally starts with high relief?
Yes, normally starts with high relief up in the highlands.
Yep.
And the reason is because water follows gravity, and also when there's lots and lots of rain and you get that more in the in the highlands, in the high relief, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So then that water, it's amazing how it starts. That water then carves out a route to get to the ocean to make sure the water cycle is still functioning.
Brilliant. So we've got the source, we've got the mouth, we've got the upper, middle, lower course.
Yeah. So characteristics of the upper course.
Yes.
Right. So when we look at characteristics, we look at the width, we look at the depth, and we look at the velocity.
And what okay, what is the width of a river?
The width of the river is how wide it is from bank to bank. So we're looking at the width of what we call the channel.
Yeah.
Channel's where the water is. So in the upper course, the width is at its narrowest point.
Yeah.
Okay, so the width is tiny. Sometimes you could be in the upper course of a river and you don't realise that it opens up into like the River Thames, for example.
Yeah, you could if you've ever been walking in places like the Peaks or the Lake District and stuff, they're a great place to see it. because it's really high relief, and you could just step over.
Yeah.
Often it looks like a trickle.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even notice that's
the
source.
start of the river.
Yeah.
If you look at the source of the River Thames, it's nuts. Because the source of the River Thames dries up in the summer. Right. It's in a field, and only in the winter when it gets wet, you can see a small little puddle.
Really?
And that's the source of the River Thames.
Right, that's amazing.
So the width is at its narrowest. Yeah. Because there's not enough water to
carve out.
Yeah, although that's the sort of where it does carve. And it also in the upper course there tends to be the hardest geology as well. So it's harder to carve out. So the width is at its narrowest, the depth is at its shallowest. Right. So the upper course is not very deep, as you said. You could step over it, you could walk through it, and nothing would really happen. Right. And also, even though it looks like it's going its fastest, the velocity, which is the speed of the water, is actually at its slowest.
Right. So, okay. So the upper course is the source.
Yeah.
It's where it is the narrowest.
Yeah.
It's where it's the shallowest. Yeah. And it's where the velocity of the water, which is the speed of the water, is flowing the slowest.
Yeah, and the reason why people think it's flowing fast is you can see all the water moving.
Right. So
when you cross the Dartford crossing, for example, you can't. It looks like the water's still, but it's not. It's flowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, we'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that in a second. So the upper course, the characteristics are it's the narrowest, the shallowest, and the slowest. But it's also where, or annoyingly, where the most erosion takes place.
Yeah, but we'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that in a second.
Right, so now we move our way down to the middle course.
Yeah. Middle course is, you could almost argue, it's the bendy part of the river. Yeah. The middle course is, when we talk in terms of characteristics, it gets wider, it gets deeper, and it gets faster.
Right.
So the reason why it gets faster is because there's now more water collected. So I think there's that, when we talk about flooding, for example, we say it only takes 30 centimetres of water to be able to move a car.
Right.
Right. So we're talking about a larger body of water. So the reason why it's moving faster, there's a lot more weight behind it, and there's a lot more power there.
Yeah. So then that starts increasing the speed.
Yeah, that starts increasing the speed of it, and that's when the erosion starts to take place a little bit more distinctively, and also you get more deposition as well.
Right.
So we get things. So because we're not necessarily talking about middle and lower course landforms, like we reckon we can say, this is where we get our meanders. This is where we get our oxbow lakes, and just quite
the thing that everyone remembers the most about geography. You'll remember that, Ava, when you finish geography. Obviously, you're going to go on and study it for the rest of your life anyway. But people are like, "Oh, you're a geography teacher, Oxbow Lakes."
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Yeah. So middle course, wider, deeper, faster.
Right. So then now we get to the lower course.
Yeah. The lower course is the part of the river where we are. So we're right next to the Dartford crossing.
I was about to say, where are we? This isn't just a Thurrock podcast, so we're worldwide. Remember that.
So we are in the southeast of England. We're in Essex, and Essex is where the River Thames sort of just really widens out. Yeah. If you look at Google Maps, it's fascinating how much it widens out. But we are right by the Dartford crossing. Tell you what, when there's an accident there, so it's game over trying to get out of this place. But in the lower course, it's at its widest. Yep. It's at its deepest, and it's at its fastest.
Right. So quite literally from source to mouth, it widens, it deepens, and it increases in velocity.
Yeah, we can go into loads of detail. What I would recommend is for students, if you try and maybe we could do this on another podcast or try and create a video about it, but something called the Bradshaw model. Right. Yeah. Describes this perfectly. We're not going to go into it now because I'm not losing that background. So the Bradshaw model explains a lot of this quite well. So the reason why it's at its widest is because the rock is normally softer, so it can erode what we call laterally, so side to side. The reason why it's at its deepest because you've now got also tributaries, which are smaller rivers joining onto the bigger river, so there's now a lot more water in there. And the reason why it's at its fastest is because it's at its deepest. Yeah. Right? Now, trying to sort of explain why is if you stood in the upper course of the river, your foot would block the flow of that water. Yeah. Right? And even though it looks like it's moving its fastest, it isn't. My sort of explanation is that if you jumped in the upper course of the river, generally you wouldn't really be moved around. No. If you jumped into the lower course of the river, you could argue you're getting swept away.
Oh, definitely.
Because of the weight in there, your weight compared to the weight of that water is insignificant.
If you jumped off the Dartford Bridge into the Thames, you'd be in trouble.
Yeah, you'd be in trouble.
Because when what I always like to talk to the students, especially our students from around here, about the lower course of the river. I'm like, when you go to Southend-on-Sea, which is pretty much the estuary, isn't it? Yeah, of the Thames, it really widens up, and that distance between Southend and Kent is huge. It's so wide. And then if you take the trip up the pier, mile and a third.
Yeah, nice.
Longest pleasure pier in the world.
Shout out Southend.
Shout out Southend. You stand at the end of the pier and you look, that's where you can really see it. So from up high, it looks like it's not moving fast. But you go to the end of Southend Pier, you can see how fast.
And also, when you are at the end of Southend Pier, you're not even really touching the sides, are you? I know you're a mile and a bit.
And you can still see so far.
Yeah, so far.
Yeah, so you can really, so for our students here who are local, if you've been to Southend, that is the mouth of the river. You can really see the characteristic of it being wide, deep, and flowing really fast.
And similarly, if you've ever gone to Wales and gone over the Severn Bridge, you're at the estuary there.
Severn Bridge.
Super wide there as well. And what's good, if you go into the uplands of Wales as well, you see the river much narrower, which I think is really, really cool.
Okay, I think, what time is it?
Must be only like 9 minutes.
15 minutes.
Right,
is it?
Quick crash course then. So, upper course is the source, it's the most narrow, it's the slowest, and it's the shallowest.
Yes.
Middle course, it starts to widen, it starts to deepen, and that velocity starts to increase. Lower course, the estuary or the mouth of a river, it is at its widest, it's at its deepest, and that's where it's flowing the fastest.
Right, we've got to be quite quick with these.
Are we going to do
these landforms?
Are we going to do both, or should we just pick one, seeing as we're tight for time?
So what one would you rather do?
I say we do waterfalls. Or do you, because we're going to do V-shaped valleys in feedback with it, year 11 anyway, aren't we? Should we do that?
Yeah. Sorry, Wendy's trying to come in with a map, so just leave the map.
Oh right, yeah, leave the map.
Feedback with year 11s do waterfall.
Right, waterfalls then. So, what part of the river do we find waterfalls?
We find waterfalls in the upper course, but we can also find them in the sort of upper end of the middle course as well.
Right, and so waterfalls are a very distinctive upper course landform. I'd like to think anyone listening to this podcast knows what a waterfall is, right? So what happens with waterfalls is you've got two layers of rock.
Yeah.
Top layer, hard rock, bottom layer, soft rock. What happens is, as that river is flowing over the top, constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that starts to build what's called a plunge pool at the bottom, right? And then which starts to form an undercut into the layer of soft rock. The soft rock is underneath the hard rock, the two layers. Through hydraulic action and abrasion, the constant scraping away at the bottom of that soft rock, it starts to form what we would call like a ledge, wouldn't we? Yeah. And then due to what causes that ledge to collapse, sir?
Do
you know I'm putting you on the spot here?
Yeah, you put me on the spot there. What would you say?
Under its own weight?
Yeah, under its own weight. I thought it was going to be a better term.
Gravity. Yeah. Gravity causes that ledge to collapse, doesn't it? And then the whole process starts again. Yeah. Water pouring over the top, forms the undercut of the plunge pool, starts wearing away this soft rock, which then forms the overhang, which collapses due to gravity. Yeah. And then it starts to retreat.
Yeah. I'll just. I mean, we could probably squeeze in.
Go on,
but just quickly, the hard rock and the soft rock, you got to remember that abrasion then just only makes a little step. Yeah. As soon as that steps there, that water's then banging on that step, and then it erodes down. And you get the final.
And it is hydraulic action and abrasion.
Yeah,
the two main forces. We reckon. Yeah. And then as it retreats, it moves up through the valley, doesn't it? Yeah. And causes a gorge. Yes. Now that is not the same as a gorge in Chafford 100.
No, not at all.
Completely different. Yeah. And then what you get as it moves further up the valley, creating this gorge with steep sides. That's where we get what's called rapids.
Yes.
So if you've ever seen anyone whitewater rafting, that is what they're doing it from. That's formed by waterfall retreating. Yeah, we good with that?
Yeah.
Because that would only be a 4 mark, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and but to get 4 marks, you need to be saying things like erosion, you need to be saying things like hard and soft rock,
hydraulic action, abrasion, and layers of hard and soft rock,
absolutely.
And then retreat.
Yeah.
We happy with that?
Yeah.
Right, I reckon you go V-shaped valleys quickly.
Right, V-shaped valleys again happen in the upper course of the river. Right. You've got the river flowing over what tends to be hard rock. Yeah. But the only erosive power the water has is vertical erosion. So the water's through abrasion because it's starting to pick up material in the erosive power of the upper course, and it starts sort of eroding downwards. So it starts eroding vertically through hydraulic action and abrasion. Yeah. So as it erodes downwards through abrasion, it starts picking up more material, so then the erosive power becomes more powerful, right? And then eventually it starts going further down, further down. Almost looks like a test tube, right? And then in the upper course, because it's colder, you get a lot more weathering, like freeze thaw. Yeah. And also because it's wetter, you get a lot more mass movement. So eventually these sides that tend to be really straight to begin with, then start to slowly get chipped away at. Yeah. And then eventually what will happen is through mass movement and through freeze thaw weathering, you get the sides then turn into the shape of a V. And then what can happen then, because there's even more material in the river now, it can continue to erode further down.
Really good. That's it. Because the V-shaped valleys are quite a hard one to sort of get your head around at first, but when you've just put it like that, it is quite simple. So vertical erosion, hydraulic action and abrasion, and mass movement of the sides.
Yeah, and weathering of the sides,
weathering, freeze fall. Weathering, that mass movement creates that V shape.
Yeah.
Now, if you type in V shape valley to Google Images, you'll see it and you'll go, oh, I know what that's.
Yeah, and also it's some of these V-shaped valleys are ginormous,
huge.
So that's why we need all that material from the freeze fall and from the mass movement to create the big steep sides.
It's amazing when you're driving up north and you look into the high relief areas, you can sometimes just see those perfect V's and you're like, oh right, amazing. Not to be confused with a U-shaped valley.
U-shaped valley we do in year 9.
They are not the same thing. They are not created the same way. They are two very separate landforms.
Yes.
So, very quick recap. Upper course, middle course, lower course.
Yeah.
Source of the rivers the start and mouths the end. We've got 2 distinctive upper course landforms.
Yeah.
Waterfalls, V-shaped valleys.
Yes, lovely.
Rivers.
Crash course in rivers.
As usual, every Friday is a crash course. Right, what is next on our agenda? I like that. That was good. I do like rivers. I do like rivers.
Interesting facts.
Oh, go on. This is a good one.
Again, I wouldn't say last minute.
No, it was last 5 minutes.
Yeah, at least
5
gave
minutes.
myself 3 minutes extra time. Right. So gold is quite an elusive substance. So
Yeah.
people like gold stuff.
They love it.
Right. And we had, what were they called? What were the people called when we used to dig up gold? They were called something. There's a name for them.
Oh, I don't know.
What were they called? I don't know. It was in Toy Story. Someone or one of the person in there is in Toy Story. But
Gold digger?
there is, has other connotations as well. But there is enough gold in planet Earth to entirely cover the surface of the planet.
Say it again.
There is enough gold on planet Earth to entirely cover the surface of it.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's pretty cool,
That's
isn't it?
Richard Beef, you found
Yeah,
that.
I found that.
Imagine what it looks
I
like.
had it in my head then. I had what the thing was called.
Well, we'll have to look that up for next week because we haven't got time for you to be racking your brains for the name of that. But that's so we have enough gold on Earth to entirely cover
The surface.
So that's amazing. That's a good one. I like that. That's a good fact. Some of these facts are a little bit out there, but I suppose this podcast is a little bit out there as well at times. Superb. What's next then?
The news.
The news. Right.
This is where the tone comes down again. I think.
So the tone comes
Yeah.
down. Yeah. We do like tackling difficult subjects in this.
And also it's important that our students understand it. Because I was talking to you this morning about how sort of annoying it is when you see things on telly and people are just so uninformed on what they're talking about that they make themselves sound ridiculous.
Yeah, and they're making mistakes, and that breeds,
especially on popular TV programs.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people are watching it, and they might start believing some of the things we're saying.
Yeah, because we believe what we see on the TV. Yeah. We do. So I think the first one we should talk about is the truce in Israel and Palestine.
Yes. So this is a UN thing.
Yeah, they've been working really hard recently.
The idea of it is to allow hostages to be released.
So there's a 4-day ceasefire.
4-day ceasefire. Hamas want to do it as sort of secretly as possible.
Yeah.
So Israel not allowed to put their drones in there.
No.
And what I didn't realise is that they are releasing 3 Hamas fighters for every 1 hostage.
Right.
So there has to be loads of negotiation and things like that going on. So there has been, but there's been quite a lot of uproar in Israel that the government weren't doing enough to get the hostages out of they're in like deep tunnels underground with like bomb-proof doors and stuff on there. But they are slowly releasing the hostages, which I think is some sort of breakthrough.
It is. And at least it shows that the two sides are communicating with each other, and whether that's being mediated by other people or not. We seem like we're getting somewhere. And I think there was lots of Palestinian women and children were being released from Israeli detention as part of this as well. So fingers crossed. Yeah.
God knows what's going to happen after the 4 days. Whether it ramps up again, which probably will.
Yeah.
But what I do think is that it's something. It's some sort of acknowledgement of.
And there has to be that is a little bit of a positive outcome.
It's nice to talk about it somewhat positive.
Yeah, to hope that we're getting somewhere with it. So fingers crossed that goes well. People can get back to their families, their loved ones, and it all goes through smoothly. And fingers crossed that truce continues. So,
because at the end of it, we're talking about civilians.
That's what we're talking about.
We're not talking about the release of like warlords or anything like that. We're talking about the release of people that going back to their families who in reality are extremely worried about the people that are the hostages.
Totally.
So thoughts go out to everyone as usual.
Next one is what happened yesterday in Dublin. Now we understand this is an education podcast, but again, these things are happening in the news, and in Dublin there's been some, in Ireland there has been sort of a little bit of tension regarding immigration.
Yeah, and I just want to preempt that by saying this links to our ethnic diversity podcast.
And this is, so in Ireland, it does really link to it. That's good. And there's been some issues, there's been some protests, some people concerned about immigration, just the same as they are in this country. And what's happened yesterday, unfortunately, there was a stabbing, and it involved some very young people, primary school age people.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, there's sort of been a backlash from the community, and people there was quite a lot of civil disorder on the streets of Dublin last night. Some footage I saw, there was double-decker buses being burnt, shops being looted.
I think we would call that in the development topic political unrest.
Yeah, it's definitely heading in that direction. That country's had a lot of political unrest in its time. So yeah, it was a pretty scary scenes last night in Dublin. So we hope that situation calms down. People in the press were saying it was right-wing groups involved.
Which has annoyed people even more.
Yeah, which has annoyed certain groups in Ireland, saying, well, hang on a minute, why is it right-wing all of a sudden? It's just people that are unhappy with what's happened and unhappy with the sort of current climate in their country. So fingers crossed that calms down and doesn't escalate any further. So yeah, that happened yesterday. And obviously our thoughts go out to everyone that was injured and involved in that primary school.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
That's just awful. We don't want to live in a society where that is happening.
No, not at all. Now going back to physical geography.
Yeah.
Hopefully Ava's got the tab up.
Yeah.
I did type it in. Cornwall. What happened in Cornwall, sir?
We had an earthquake.
We had no earthquake.
We did not have a volcano.
We did not have a volcano.
Right.
I've got volcanoes on the brain.
There's igneous rock in Cornwall, so we did have a volcano
at some point. Right. What magnitude was this earthquake?
It was a 2.7.
2.7. I thought it was like 2.3. So 2.7 is pretty big, isn't it?
For the UK,
Yeah, 2.7.
you wouldn't wake up, I don't think, if that happened at night time.
But are you trying to say that I sleep deep?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but so 2.7 earthquake. It would have been read on seismographs.
Yeah.
People said they did feel it. Some people said it felt like an avalanche. I'm thinking to myself,
How do you know what an avalanche is?
in Cornwall, how do you know what an avalanche feels like? Maybe they've been on holiday or something like that.
Maybe.
But not significant, but significant for the UK. Now, people may ask why are we getting earthquakes in the UK? But what we do have under the UK, deep underground, even though we're not on a tectonic boundary right now, we have got ancient ancient plate boundaries deep underneath that. There is still some rupturing of. So that does sometimes create these smaller.
Because if you look on earthquake maps, like the location distribution of earthquakes occurring, you do see some dotted around.
Yeah, and obviously it could also have been caused by humans if they were drilling.
Fracking.
So there's a lot of things. But it's interesting. It's good always. I don't want to say nice to see, but you know what I mean.
No, it's just good to see we're teaching earthquakes, and then someone comes in the year 8 and was like, oh, there was one in Cornwall, and you're like, right, there you go. Because we get, other than flooding, we don't really.
And earthquakes happen other places.
Yeah. Okay, so is there one more thing we have to talk about? I think.
The weather.
But it's not a weather forecast, is it?
Forecast, no clear blues today. So.
Definitely no clear blues out there. It
Definitely
is
not.
cloudy. It's a bit miserable today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Windy though.
Do you know what we have been getting? Nice sunrises.
Have we? Oh, the other day
they've
was
been lovely.
beautiful actually. Before we had football training, I almost went up
The day
to.
before, it was Wednesday morning.
I almost went up to the top floor to have a look. I forgot. Obviously, I've got loads of work to do. So, Amy, what's the weather for this weekend, please?
Everything is under 10 degrees
We're
until
getting to that
next
time
Sunday. And lots of rain.
Really? Oh.
There is potentially a white after Christmas.
Really?
So they're expecting 2013. Well, we had a lot of snow in 2013. I don't know if people remember that, but 2013, just after Christmas in January, February, which is when we normally get snow. So don't expect a white Christmas because it's not cold enough. But there's these people are able to see. So these big weather companies are able to then look quite far in the future at pressure zones and stuff like that. And they're able to predict like where the jet stream is. If the jet stream's pretty settled, then they can track these weather things, these like sort of weather pressure zones. And if we're talking about air masses again, at the moment it's sort of like polar maritime.
Yeah.
It's going down, picking up loads of water from the Atlantic and being forced up north into
The
northwest up to like Norway and stuff, and being driven straight down to the UK.
Down here, they were saying that's coming over from the Arctic. That's interesting.
So it could potentially be 20. Well, just as I go to Belfast, could be absolutely could be tearing down with snow.
Right, what time are we on? What minute?
29.
29.
We've got some
home.
bit to cut off at the
Start, but I think maybe we've just got a little bit more to talk about. Maybe we're a bit more comfortable in
Yeah.
front of the lens. Well, anyway, thanks very much for today, Ava. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Stay safe,
And don't forget to like and subscribe, and please still listen to us on Spotify because that's our home.
Yeah, it's like you've got to listen to both twice a weekend now.
Yeah.
All right, superb. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was good. Cheers. Well done, Ava. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Get it in. That was good.